Hi guys, this is Paul again, and I've got another video to show you, and I'm going to call this video the Rung Slope 3D Geometry for 3 types of DNA. In the last few months, I've made some interesting new finds. I found that there is a wonderful 3D spherical order based around the natural slope angles of the Platonic solids. Okay, let's look at the rung geometry of the top rungs. That will be A DNA. Now the next one down is going to be the B-type DNA. And then the third one is going to be the Z-type DNA. Now if you look at these 3 types of DNA, you can see a string of 3 icosas, and they're at an angle. This is a slope angle, so I'm going to show the slope angles. Now notice that the slope angle of A-type DNA and B-type DNA matches the same angle. Now look at A-type DNA. The vertices of the icosa forms the slope angle. Now look at B-type DNA. The faces of the blue dodecas, they form the slope angle. But if you look at the yellow outline of the dodeca, the vertices form the slope angle. Now if you look at the top A DNA, the flat faces of the icosa are in the vertical position. And if you look, the vertices of the dodeca outline, yellow outline, they are in the vertical position. So it's exact opposite of B-type DNA. Now if you look at my earlier videos, I show that from the center point of the icosa and the dodeca to the vertices, these are the duophi vectors I show. Now I show in all my videos that 3D Platonic order is based around the duophi vector system. But I guess I get the cold shoulder for all of this work, all these discoveries, because it contradicts the chaos theory. Okay, let's look at the Z-type DNA. This is a bit different. If you notice, the faces of the icosa are facing upwards, and also the slope, the faces of the icosa are in the slope position. But if you look at the yellow dodeca outline, the vertices are in the vertical position, and the vertices of the dodeca are in the slope position as well. Now I show in some of my earlier videos that this slope angle, this 19.473, is the latitude of the Yucatan. This is how I show Yucatan rings between the cube or the dodeca. Actually, the dodeca is 5 nested cubes. Okay, you can see that the 3 types of DNA have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. Now, the right-hand side starts on the bottom ring, and the left-hand side finishes on the top ring. So basically, we have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. Like the DNA can split into 2 sides. They are called base pairs. So we have another 2 measurements that we need. The diameter of the rings and the distance between the rings, which is called the actual rise. So let's take a look. If somebody else wants to repeat this geometric arrangement, it needs 2 more dimensions. So I'm going to show this as the sphere diameter of the icosa is 3.4 angstroms, and the spherical diameter of the dodeca is 4.05 angstroms. Okay, let's give this stuff a spin around, and you can see it better as it turns around. Now the biologists know more about the DNA molecular structure of the rungs. Now if somebody studies my previous videos, I show that the dodeca contains 5 nested cubes. Now these cubes could be cubic wonder cubes. Now the cubic wonder cubes split up into the geometry of any molecular structure. The problem is that cubic wonder has been suppressed for over 12 years because universities do not focus on three-dimensional geometry and sacred geometry for about 100 years. They work the opposite to this positive growing cubic wonder system. The academics teach a negative growing fractal chaos system, and they say that order is in the hidden dimensions. Unlike cubic wonder, which is positive growing, and everything gives us a perfect order. It's like saying that everybody must follow the general, but the general is charging backwards on his horse. Anyways, let's get back to this three-dimensional DNA order. In front I'm showing the front view and the top view of a DNA, the first 5 rungs. Now if you look at the purple helix, imagine it's going around a cylinder. It's going around positive. Now if you look at the top view, I'm going to add some angles, and the golden ratio angles. And if you look at a dodeca, you get a wide gap and you got a short gap, the golden ratio. Now if you look at my earlier videos of DNA coming out of quad step rings, you will see how them angles came out of a 48 ball quad step ring that are 7.5 degrees apart. Oh, and something else to add that's important. If you count up the 4 angles, they come to 135 degrees. So the 5 rungs come up to 135 degrees for A-type DNA. Okay, now we can take a look at B-type DNA. Now B-type DNA is a lot simpler. The vertical axis is based around the vectors of the icosa. So you have a 5-fold going around the vertical axis. Now I showed this in my earlier videos coming out of quad step 40 ball rings, which are 9 degrees apart. So that's why you get the 36 degree angle. I'm showing this B-type DNA as 5 rung with a total of 144 degrees. That's 36 degrees times 4. And also, very similar to A DNA, the rungs are going around in a positive flow. Okay, now I can show you the Z-type DNA. Now you can see that the Z-type is a little bit different to the other two. If you look at the yellow helix, it's in front of the purple helix. So it's going around in a negative flow this time. Now look at the rotation of the rung angle. We have a 37.5 and a 22.5, which makes 60. And we get 2 of them. So that's 120 degrees for 5 rungs. I realize that the flow of the helix is an awkward kind of flow. But if you study the axis rotation around a size 6 dodeca, between the vertices going around, you can see where this zigzag is coming from. If you check out my earlier video, I show where these angles come from. They come from the 48 ball quad step ring, which is 7.5 degrees apart. Okay, now we know how the 5 rung sections go together. So now I'm going to show you an anim I put together to show you how these 5 sections make up a longer helix. It's basically lifting a copy 4 actualizes for each type of DNA and rotating it at the desired rotation. Okay, we'll give it a spin around, and now you can see it's quite plain to anybody that we have a wonderful three-dimensional Platonic order. Now I think this video shows without any doubt that the 3D Platonic order for DNA is based around the 5 vectors, the duo 5 vectors. And I show without a doubt that this order is in the 3rd dimension. You don't have to go to higher dimensions or chaos theory equations. There is a perfect order in 3 dimensions. So this is Paul saying thank you very much for looking at my video that shows order and not chaos.